The Braves will open a 6-game homestand in the same place as the last one, a game back of the Mets in the National League East, as neither team could create any distance despite their rivals' misfortunes. You're watching BPTV, Cory McCartney, along with Grant McCauley, as always. And Grant, a 3-game losing streak by both the Mets and the Braves in the last 5. And maybe the best thing you can say if you're either one of them is nothing gained, but also nothing lost.
Yeah, or you might have to reverse that. I don't know. I mean, there's just so much in this war of attrition between these two teams, and the Braves are very fortunate that the Chicago Cubs, the team that spoiled their 14-game winning streak earlier this year, that was the same club that just swept the Mets at Citi Field. I did not think I'd be saying that here in this September race, but while that was going on and the Braves' rival was having its misfortunes, Atlanta lost 4 out of 5 to close out an 8-game road trip, and one of those in excruciating fashion to the Seattle Mariners. I think that's the one everybody's going to look at and say it's the one that got away. Now, being someone who's followed the Braves for a long time, someone who's covered the Braves for a long time, I have seen some disastrous trips out west. This would not qualify for that, but you just have to feel like, Corey, they left at least a little bit on the table during that 8-game swing.
And we go back to the schedule again. The Mets are in the midst of a 4-game series against the Pirates, with the Brewers, who are clinging to their postseason hopes to follow. Meanwhile, 7 of the Braves' next 10 games are against the team right behind them in the wild card standings, in the Phillies, who are the 6-6 against the Braves this season. In a scheduling quirk, every one of the Braves' remaining 19 games is against an NL East opponent. And that's key because the Mets still have the easier schedule, but the Braves are 35-22 in the division. Yeah, that includes the Phillies and the bigger by the minute series against the Mets, but it also has 9 versus the Marlins and the Nationals, who the Braves are combined 22-7 against so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to beat up on those teams lower down in the division, but you just pointed to what's going to happen in the next 10 games. You're going to have 7 against the Philadelphia Phillies. And as you said, this season series is all tied up at 6 apiece with these 7 pivotal games, not just for what the Braves are hoping to do, but this is important for the Philadelphia Phillies, who have a 2.5-game lead for the second wild card spot. They are behind Atlanta. They trail Atlanta by 9 games in the NL East. So I don't think anybody's looking at it as series that are going to change the division race, but they're equally as important if you just have eyes on the postseason as a whole. Now, the Phillies have outscored the Braves 58-57 in this first 12 games. So you talk about an evenly matched seasonal series. I think that's what we're looking at here. But it's going to be important for both of these teams to win the respective series, the 3-game set that we're about to go into this weekend, and a 4-game set that looms as well. But there's so much for the Braves to do over the next 19 games against the National League East. Only 3 of those are against the New York Mets, but there is significant ground to be gained or lost if you're unable to win some series you're supposed to against some teams that are behind you in the standings.
So I want to get into that Phillies preview in a minute. And now that we've got our weekly State of the East address out of the way, I want to talk about what's not happening of late with this offense. And that's those big bats not coming through. We are halfway through September, and the Braves 1 through 4 hitters are collectively tied for last in the majors, hitting 36% below league average. Now, that includes Austin Riley and Dansby Swanson, both at 90 weighted run created plus. Ronald Acuña Jr. is at 61. Matt Olson has an 11 weighted run created plus in this month. That categorizes Grant as not good coming in the midst of a division title race, and the Braves need these bats to wake up in the worst way.
Yeah, not great, Bob. That's not a good look for Matt Olson at all. And this is the time of year where you can ill afford a slump. But as much as you can look at his struggles being the worst of those 4, I think it's good to group those 4 together because the lights have been out at the top of the order more nights than not for the Braves, particularly on this recent road trip where it felt like at times, really, Dansby Swanson was the only guy that was coming up with some big hits and having some big moments or at least some big games for the Braves. Austin Riley popped a couple of home runs, but Matt Olson's deep freeze in the middle of that order is something that is going to have to change. And I know that the Braves have talked about the balance up and down the lineup, having those threats at the bottom of the order, but we've now seen Michael Harris and Vaughn Grissom move out of the 8-9 spots in the order and move a little bit higher up. Ronald Acuña Jr. DHing by and large has also changed the way that the Braves outfield alignment has gone, and thus has been changing the way that this lineup is constructed. And oh, by the way, that lineup construction could change again this weekend with the return of second baseman Ozzie Albies, which I'm sure that we'll get to. So there's a lot of things that are going on as far as moving parts in this Braves lineup, but the thing they need to get moving is the top 4 men in the order. This lineup is always better when Ronald Acuña Jr. is hitting and setting the tone at the top of the order. That has not been happening. You got to get Dansby and Austin, who have carried this Braves offense for long stretches this season, back and going. And really, I think it's time for Matt Olson to end the season the way he began the season, with a nice 2 or 3 week hot streak that really helps the Braves score the runs they need.
To his credit, Dansby Swanson did have an over 800 OPS during this road trip. And there's frankly no time for rest, but you have to wonder if Olson, Riley, and Swanson are wearing down just a bit. Olson and Swanson have played in all 143 games so far. Riley has missed 2 games. Olson and Swanson have been below league average hitters in the second half. Riley is in the midst of his worst month of the year. The Braves, though, are about to play 13 straight games without an off day ahead of that showdown with the Mets. Rest, frankly, just is not in the cards for this team.
No, it may not be, but even on this 8-game road trip, the Braves had 2 off days. And I know that this off day that we're talking about on Thursday at the end of the trip may not have felt like very much of an off day because you had to fly back across country, readjust to time zones. And I'm sure they were tired after 10 games spent out west. So there have been some games off for the Braves. I guess their regular infield alignment that they've had, but maybe here or there a game off would be nice, but certainly you can't be resting multiple guys on multiple days. And I don't know if 1 or 2 off days is really going to change the complexion of what they're dealing with right now. It could help. It may not help. Having them, out of the lineup is going to be something that you're going to kind of wonder at this time of year. Well, if you lose a 1-run game and Matt Olson or Austin Riley or Dansby Swanson's not playing, I think you're going to have to wonder, is the rest worth the potential impact in the standings? And that's kind of where you're at this point. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, oh, well, if they'd had a couple more off days in May or June, that it'd be making a big difference. Everybody's tired. Everybody's beat up this time of season. You'd like to have somebody who's good enough to be able to swap out some of these pieces. I think you could make an argument that maybe Vaughn Grissom could have a start here or there. But by and large, again, to go back to this point, to beat this dead horse, the Braves need their horses out there every single day, because if they want to chase down the Mets and pass the Mets in the standings, they're going to need the guys that got them into this position. And I think you can point to Austin Riley and Dansby Swanson and Matt Olson as guys that really helped them have the season that they're having right now. Getting Ozzie Albies back might be a big help, though. So we'll see if that maybe energizes this group.
Yeah, Olson told me he hates taking days off. He says you can't fix something when you're sitting on the bench. So certainly he does not want to take a single day off during the season. But while the Braves 1 through 4 hitters may not be delivering, it's still been a top 10 offense this month. A big reason why is Michael Harris II. He is hitting a ridiculous 124% above league average in the month. By Fangraph 4, he's been a top 10 player across the game in September. Grant Harris was pretty good in the first half. A 123 weighted run created plus. He's been 71% above in the second half, within August and now September that have been his most productive months. He's hitting 335 since August 1st with an OPS of 1,050. That's the best OPS in the NL in that span, the second best average. Somehow, some way, it just keeps getting better for Money Mike.
Yeah, and he's a guy that has energized the Braves, I think, since the moment that he came up from Double-A Mississippi. Yeah, it might have taken him a few days or a week or so at the end of May to kind of get everything going. But when you look at everything that's gone right for this club since June the 1st, Michael Harris II's name has got to be at or near the top of that list, I guess, with that other guy, Spencer Strider. Now, there's a lot of other players that have really contributed to the Braves' success, but it just feels like the Atlanta Braves' entire season changed when Michael Harris came up and became the everyday center fielder, and it changed drastically and for the better. And like you said, this kid just keeps getting better. His 2-home-run game in Seattle, I hate that it came in a contest in which the Braves weren't able to pull out that win, because his 3-run homer in the 9th inning was one of the biggest hits. But I think we can expect more big hits and big moments from a guy that just keeps delivering, and that's how you get the nickname Money, I would assume.
He's hitting against everyone lately, and he's primed for another big weekend as the Braves host the Phillies. He has an 868 OPS against Philly pitchers, so expect some big money moments from him. The pitching matchups in this series: Max Fried against Ranger Suarez on Friday, Aaron Nola and Jake Odorizzi on Saturday, and Bailey Falter and Spencer Strider on Sunday. Fried coming off a start against the Mariners, in which he gave 2 home runs up in the regular season for the first time in more than a year. Odorizzi ran into trouble against the Mariners, allowing 4 runs. The Giants got to Strider for a season-high 9 hits. Who are you keyed in among those Braves starters that's getting a big bounce back in this series?
Well, I mean, you need Max Fried to do the thing that he does, which is help the Braves, take a game 1 of a series. That's what you'll be looking for him to do in October, most certainly, and to pitch some of the most meaningful and important innings. And at this point, as you go into any series, I don't think you want to be walking in, losing that opener, and then realizing, hey, we got to win the next 2 to take this series. I think the Braves know where they're at. They hadn't lost back-to-back series until the Seattle and San Francisco series to close out this road trip since back in the middle portion of May. So Atlanta had gone a long way without losing back-to-back series. In fact, series losses were few and far between for the Braves since June the 1st, but they need to take this series in Philadelphia. You need to start it out with a win. You need Max Fried to do that. Spencer Strider, I know some folks will kind of talk about how maybe he has the stuff to be closing things out for the Braves. Well, he needs to help the Braves close out this series with a victory. I'm really not sure what to make of the middle contest of this. You got Aaron Nola going, who's a Cy Young contender, of course, for the Philadelphia Phillies, and Jake Odorizzi's getting another start, and he really needs a good one. Those have been few and far between from him since putting on a Braves uniform. So again, this is a pivotal time for Atlanta. This is a pivotal time for the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm not sure who really has the edge as far as the starting pitching matchups go. I think Ranger Suarez has been better than people might realize. I would say that final matchup with Strider against Falter probably goes the Braves' way, but you've got to be in position to take the series before you start worrying about game 3.
Well, the Phillies are hitting 115 against Strider, who has a 1.17 ERA against him with 24 strikeouts and 15 in the third inning. He has a 2.23 ERA at home compared to 3.25 in the road. So everything's set up for him to show up and show out, no doubt. And speaking of another guy the Braves are ready to have show up and show out, Ozzie Albies has just been on a tear lately for Gwinnett at the playground. What are the expectations for Albies when he gets back into this lineup?
You know, Ozzie just coming back in and giving the Braves a little bit of a jolt by getting one of their stalwarts back. One of the guys who's been a big part of all the winning that they've been doing over the last 4+ seasons, and somebody that can help hold down second base and give you more depth, because we're going to see what this means for Vaughn Grissom and where his back goes. I know it's cooled off a little bit after the first couple of weeks, so he did have a couple of big moments here and there on the road trip. But getting Ozzie Albies back brings some stability, I think, to the Braves, and something they've been missing for a while, and an energy and a charisma that is just part of who this team is. So having him back is nothing but a net positive. He's going to go back in at second base and play pretty much every day is what my expectation is, and I think should be the expectation of most people. And, just get back to normal. And I think Ozzie can probably look back over the first couple of months of the season before he got hurt and say, that's not the numbers I wanted, not the start that I wanted. And now he has a chance to bounce back from that. So we'll see what he's able to do. We know that the Philadelphia Phillies recently got Bryce Harper back. That has not been the big lift for them. They're only 9-8 in the 17 games that Harper has played since returning. That kind of surprised me, but hopefully for the Braves, a lot better record from the return of Ozzie Albies as they go down the stretch, the final 19 games.
Well, I hope Brian Snicker likes puzzles, because he's going to have a few on his hands here as he tries to piece this whole thing together. The Drive for 5 continues, and we've got you covered here on BPTV. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and help spread the word. Also, don't forget, you can find us on From the Diamond on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Also available wherever you find your podcast. Thanks for watching. I'm Cory McCartney. He's Graham McCauley, and we'll see you next time, Braves Country.